Hello everybody, it's me Julian, and in this short video I would like to talk about the instant gratification trap and how it relates to fetishistic disavowal. Specifically, I would like to think philosophically about why it is so difficult for us to put down our phones and what this tells us about the human condition. Steven Pinker has an interesting idea which you might characterize as the instant gratification trap. He talks about a group of scientists who implant a rat with electrodes in its brain that stimulate pleasure. They place the rat in a maze, and the rat can press a button that gives it instant gratification. What happens is that the rat no longer tries to get out of the maze. It no longer tries to find food or drink. It simply gorges itself on pleasure. And of course, the rat perishes. And you could say that there's a certain metaphor here for how we approach contemporary technology. When we grab our phone, it stimulates us, it gives us serotonin. And so we start doing something that actually isn't very healthy for us. And paradoxically, it's not even that we enjoy it. In fact, often we're sad or upset. Perhaps we feel guilty about it, and yet we nevertheless continue to do it anyway. Slavoj Žižek has argued that this is a form of fetishistic disavowal, which he claims is one of the primary symptoms of contemporary social life. And the way that he likes to explain fetishistic disavowal is by using the French formula of je sais bien, mais quand même. I know very well, and yet nevertheless. And so like the rat, we're gorging ourselves on stimuli, and yet unlike the rat, we're not able to fully indulge, to fully enjoy to excess. Instead, we're doing the thing that we think makes us happy, and yet nevertheless we can't fully succumb to it. We can't fully give ourselves to it. In fact, if you think about the idea of pleasure from an evolutionary perspective, it's supposed to be an incentive structure for survival. Like food tastes good so that we want to eat it, and procreation feels good so that we want to continue living as a species. And yet we've become detached from that fundamental mechanism today. The things that make us supposedly happy, the things that give us stimuli and pleasure, are in fact also things that make us feel empty inside, that make us feel lost. In fact, this is why Lacan, in his psychoanalytic theory of desire, argues that the fundamental double bind, or if you will, the fundamental deadlock of subjectivity, is that secretly we don't want the thing that we think makes us happy. This is the central lesson of psychoanalysis. One, we don't know what we want. But secondly, we don't really want the thing we think we want. It's like Oscar Wilde's quip that life has only two tragedies. Either you don't get what you want, or you get exactly what you want. And Lacan therefore argues that what we truly desire is a kind of repetitive function, something whereby the object of our desire eludes our grasp, and yet we enjoy this process. Think about playing a video game late at night. Like you could spend the entire night trying to beat the final boss, and yet when you finish, you're not going to be happy. Maybe for a moment, but not really. Then you start feeling guilty about being tired the next day. So what you secretly were enjoying was playing the game, not beating the game. And this means that from the perspective of fetishistic disavowal, we're doing something that, in a sense, defeats the purpose. Like, we're playing the game not to beat it, but to play it. In the same that when we're online, we're scrolling, not to reach the end of the scrolling, but to keep on scrolling. And this is a central mechanism that lies at the heart of the entire consumer economy, to keep on wanting more, to never stop, never stopping. Like, when you buy an iPhone, the whole point is to replace it with another iPhone. We don't make things that are meant to last anymore. We're all hooked on this drug of the new. And this is why the instant gratification trap, I think, is so dangerous. Because the thing about instant gratification is it's neither truly instant, nor is it gratifying. Which is to say, it presents itself as being instantaneous, but really it's about extending, elongating the pleasure to a point of no return. Like, think about junk food. Junk food presents itself to us as an evolutionary advantage of sorts, i.e., it's cheap, it tastes really good, and it's easy to access. And so our brain thinks this is a good thing. This gives us an advantage, but it's actually a trap. i.e., as soon as you eat a Big Mac, you're going to want to eat another one. They're engineered to stimulate our taste buds, but to leave us unsatisfied and unfulfilled so that you can keep wanting more. There's a great joke in one of the early South Park episodes where Cartman, his family adopts a starving African citizen, a young boy called Starvin' Marvin. And Cartman introduces him to an appetizer, and he says, "This is what we eat in America to become more hungry." And the things that we eat to become more hungry are therefore symptomatic. They're things that we enjoy, that we consume, not because they give us anything, not because they enrich us in any way, but because we simply want more of it. And so we become addicted to this idea of more. We want something that doesn't satisfy. And this is why it's so hard to put down your phone, I think, which is to say that it's the easiest way to access this feeling of abundance. It's almost like the ring in The Lord of the Rings. There's a beautiful scene in the beginning where Bilbo says that he feels like butter spread over too much bread. And that's exactly what it feels like being online, like your attention is spread over too much bread. And fetishistic disavowal in psychoanalytic circles is often compared to a story where a man loses his wife and is unable to process the trauma, and so he adopts a pet hamster, and he's totally fine until the pet hamster dies. Then he too breaks down. He essentially can no longer live. And isn't this how our phones are today? Like, we're no longer able to deal with the world. And so instead of processing the world, what some people today like to call trauma, we simply hold on to our phones, we cradle it, we put it underneath our pillow when we sleep. In fact, when you don't use your phone, it's like a phantom limb, you find yourself reaching for it. And if we didn't have our phone, if we weren't online, we would completely disintegrate. It's like the return of the repressed. We would have to confront all of our demons, as it were. And therefore, I think to exist online today is to find ourselves stuck. We're doing something that gives us the illusion of being happy, and yet which leaves us feeling malcontent. And the question that everyone has to ask themselves, therefore, is what does it take in order to truly find contentment, purpose, and meaning? And I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but I will venture a couple of suggestions. For one, I'm lucky that I grew up in a world that was largely offline, which means I know the simple pleasures of the analog experience, of holding a book, of listening to a record, of making your own mixtape on a cassette and giving it to the person you're in love with. And the reason I said that these are simple pleasures is because they're about restrictions. They're about not having access to everything. In fact, G.K. Chesterton has a wonderful line where he says that every act of will is simply an act of self-limitation. And I believe that's so true. Anything that matters starts by means of filtering out other things. Even love is that way. Like when you love one person, you love them, not everybody. When you're reading a book, you're not reading every book. When you're listening to a piece of music, you give it your attention. Attention is a form of love. When we look around us, we realize just how beautiful the world is if we're willing to look at it with attention. And ironically, the attention economy wants to drain us of our very essence, the very thing that makes us feel. We give attention to these platforms that then monetize it. And so attention becomes a valuable commodity. And once you realize that you have to protect your attention. You have to protect your time and your peace of mind. And when you give your attention, it is therefore something that you are essentially extending to that which you believe is worthy of your attention. Another person, a loved one, a book, a record. And so cherish your attention. On which note I would say thank you for your attention. Thank you for watching this video. The fact that you have taken the time to watch this video is valuable, and I'm really glad that we're creating this space. That is the instant gratification trap, how it relates to fetishistic disavowal, and hopefully this video is valuable to you in your own life. On that note, I will see you tomorrow, and please don't forget to consider becoming a patron. Thank you.